An officer who is simply present during the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis has been sentenced to nearly 5 years. His name is Tao Tao. He's an ex-Minneapolis cop. He was holding back bystanders, saying that he acted as a human traffic cone. But it doesn't matter. He was actually sentenced to more time than prosecutors requested. Why? Because there is a malignant evil in this country that seeks to rip apart and destroy everything. But you know what? I got one thing to say to all these people, these far leftists. Why don't you try that in a small town? Yeah, we all know that music video, Jason Aldean. Try that in a small town. 26 million views in 3 weeks. Ha! I'd like to see that, because then you'll be criminally charged for filming someone chasing a suspected burglar, and then you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That's funny, isn't it? I love this. Try that in a small town. Yeah, maybe you should take a look at Michael Tracy's reporting about what happens when these people try it in a small town. Oh, they all got away with it. They ransacked businesses. They destroyed everything. People were begging to be left alone. That's what happens when you try that in a small town. You get away with it. And now here we are, and we can see what's happening. You know, I'm reminded of there's a recently in the news, Vivek Ramaswamy is calling for revolution, and he's completely correct. He says the 1776 ideals, reform is not going to cut it. He's right. We are sitting by, and we are watching everything crumble around us. Police don't do their jobs anymore, yet they go to prison when they do the bare minimum. And I started wondering, am I going to have sympathy for these cops who choose to work in these places, in these Democrat-run cities where criminals go free and you go to prison? The system has collapsed already. It is broken. And we need some kind of restructuring, rebuilding, not reforming. You can call it revolution, but I feel like revolution implies the intentional destruction of a system. I feel at this point, leftist forces and just social degradation, whether intentional or otherwise, has resulted in a collapse of the system. And it would be absurd to believe otherwise, for which we must now rebuild something better, perhaps utilizing the ideals of the founding fathers, 1776, etc. Right now, you have far leftists. They want communism. They're insane. Communism has never worked, never will work. It can't work because, I take that back. It can work. Techno-communism can work, right? If you take people and plug their brains into the machine and strip them of free will, congratulations. Now you can have your techno-communism. But so long as human beings are allowed to have independent and free thought, you're not going to have communism. It's just not possible. So in the meantime, as we watch the system utterly and completely collapse, I have a series of stories for you to break all of this down. And ultimately, my conclusion is, just as we get started, we do need revolution. Vivek is correct. We need meritocratic, classically liberal revolution. That is to say, the system has become so corrupted over these past several generations that I don't think preserving it as it stands makes a whole lot of sense. And I think most of you would agree, and that the initial assumption was we want to preserve those good values of the founding fathers. But those have long since passed. Some of them are still being held together by single threads. The Constitution is basically Swiss cheese. So if we were to bring these ideals back, in fact, it would be a revolution of the modern system to restore true meritocratic values. Let me show you this story, and we'll talk about the big news with Tao Tao going to prison for standing next to a car telling people to stay back. Oh, he's an accomplice now. Take a look at this. And his name is actually, it's I think if you were to pronounce it correctly, it's like Tao Tao, but I think in colloquial English, we would just say Tao Tao. It's Touthao is his name. I'm trying to be respectful and pronounce his name correctly. The fourth and final former Minneapolis cop has been sentenced to 57 months in prison for his role in the 2020 killing of George Floyd. The sentence handed to Tao Tao, 37, by the county judge was 6 months longer than the sentence proposed by Minneapolis prosecutors. I just love this. I love it so much. You are watching it happen all around you. The left loves it. I was hoping for a little more remorse, regret, acknowledgement of some responsibility and less preaching. Judge Peter Cahill said to Tao during sentencing on Monday. I want you guys to understand something, okay? Whether figurative or literal, this judge is a demon. Sitting there with a smile. I think they got a picture of him. They got a picture of him in here with a smile on his face as this cop who is just standing there is going to jail for basically 5 years. And this judge is like, you should have had more regret for being present somewhere. Like, these people are abject evil. I feel that people like this judge, Peter Cahill, I think he gets off on these kinds of cases. You've got people who are in these positions of power as judges who have longed for the ability to cause harm to others. They are psychotic. They are sociopathic. They seek not justice. They seek pain. They are possessed, figuratively or literally. There are a lot of people who believe it's a literal possession, that they're actually demons inhabiting these people's body, because how could someone be so remorseless and evil? Me, I just think people can be evil. So I say figuratively, this guy's possessed. But I've met many a leftist in my day. Look, you go back 10 years or so, and there were many leftists who were good. I look at someone like Marianne Williamson. She's a good person. She's got bad ideas, but she's a good person. She has some good ideas. I'm not saying all her ideas. I'm saying she has some bad ideas she's proposed. I disagree with her, but I think she's a good person. I think she tries. I really do. I do not believe she's evil. I believe she's just wrong on some things. But there are many people that we would say are politically leftist that, for the most part, it's like, oh, they're okay. Cal Kalinske and Crystal Ball, I think, are great, honest, nice people. And but they're very left. But the left right now attracts the abject evil because it has institutional power. And thus you will find people aiding and abetting the worst impulses of leftist whim like this. They say, it comes 3 months after Tao, a 9-year veteran of the force, was found guilty of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. Tao testified that he served as a human traffic cone when he held back concerned bystanders who gathered as fellow officer Derek Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck. It's so obvious to anybody who pays attention that they're lying. We've seen the leaked body camera footage. We know exactly what's going on. What's happening right now in this country is that innocent people are being imprisoned. I met someone recently who's going to prison or was convicted for being present on January 6th. And as the story goes, this individual, it was 2 individuals, had arrived just shy of 3 p.m. on January 6th, seeing a bunch of people walking around, no fighting. Doors were open, cops were waving people in, and they walked around and looked around and didn't really know what was going on. Walked through the door by themselves, looked around, and then left. And that was it. And now they're facing a year in prison. Kid you not. That's it. There were no barricades. There were no signs. There were no cops saying, don't come here. It was literally just open doors and people walking around and clueless individuals who had no idea what was happening. And they're going to get locked up. This officer responds to the scene of a belligerent man resisting arrest, George Floyd. Perceivably on drugs, he was chewing on a speedball. They found him under the influence behind the wheel of a car, and he started resisting. This cop shows up, and they say, hey, just hold back the crowd. And that's all he does. He has no idea what's happening. He's not looking at them kneeling on George Floyd. He doesn't know what they're doing or what's happening. He's just trying to stop an unruly crowd. And now he gets to go to prison. Abject evil, my friends. We have the video here. A Minneapolis judge sentenced Tao to because he held back bystanders, I guess. So part of this makes me happy. Yeah, I really do. I really do mean it, because I am just so over sympathizing with people who join these police departments. I've had cops in these big Democrat-run cities treat me like trash. I have been, I was given you guys know my story from Chicago. I wasn't speeding. I was exiting off of Lakeshore Drive in Chicago at Belmont, so I was slowing down, and a cop pulled me over, lied and accused me of going 20 over. I wasn't. And then because of that ticket, my license got suspended for like 2 years. It's like what happens is the license gets suspended for, I think it's like 3 months. But then because I didn't know that getting this ticket would suspend my license, I got charged with driving on a suspended license. I got to take, what am I supposed to do? Stop going to my job? So I have very little sympathy for these callous, remorseless police officers who serve this evil machine in Democrat-run cities. Now, hold on there a minute. Y'all might be saying, hey, man, not all cops are bad, blah, blah, blah. Oh, you're correct. In the small town, you got good cops. Where we are now, these cops are all like local dudes we know, and they're good people. I bump into a cop and he's like, hey, man, good to see you. And they've tried really hard to help us because it's like our neighbors. Our neighbors are here and they care about us. But in big cities, these cops, they don't know you. They don't care about you. That's it. It's just a big, faceless, corrupt machine. Now, look, I don't like that this guy's going to prison for basically doing nothing. But you know what? At a certain point, when you are in service of these leftist institutions, when you have BLM going to people's homes in Wisconsin and setting fire to it, and this happened twice, then this crowd shows up to another guy's house. They're screaming and they're yelling and he brandishes a firearm. He shouldn't have done it, don't get me wrong. But he's in his own home. The cops come and arrest him. So when a violent mob shows up, they had previously set fire twice to a house. You better not do anything to defend yourself, because we'll come and arrest you. I warned this. I said this years ago. These people in these homes, it breaks my heart. These people think that as the mob marches down the street, if they just keep their heads down, the mob will pass them over. Just paint a rainbow over your door and the mob passes by your house. Hey, partly true. We've seen those photos from, I think it was the G20 in Hamburg, where you've got all of the storefronts smashed out, save one right in the middle. And what did that one store do? They put a communist fist in the window. Go to Oakland, one of the most dangerous cities in the country. And what do you find? Many of the businesses in Oakland have signs on their windows supporting far left extremism because they're hoping the far left extremists will pass them over. Pathetic, pathetic. So we're opening this coffee shop. We're opening this coffee shop, and it's in MAGA country, don't get me wrong, but there is leftist elements all over the place. And I am going to fly Molon Labe banners. I'm going to put the Gonzalez flag right above the door. Come and take it. We're going to have, maybe a Trump 2024 thing. I'm not like the staunchest of Trump supporters. I'm going to vote for him because I want to see him fire people. But I think for the most part, the cultural ideas matter more to me than supporting any political candidate or anything like that. And then we'll see what happens. I'm not going to hide from it. You can come to my place of business and you can see what happens in MAGA country when you want to act a fool. It ain't going to be pretty. Because like I mentioned, you got cops out here, they do better. Now, don't get me wrong. I've mentioned this before. You got these all ages drag shows happening out here and the cops ain't doing nothing about it. And that makes me angry. And the prosecutors probably support it. So we've got to push back on this evil encroaching into our country. Take a look at this from CNN. I love this. CNN tweeted, amid a surge in crime in Oakland, California, police have advised residents to use air horns to alert neighbors to intruders and add security bars to their doors and windows. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. When they come for you with the intent on killing, raping, and murdering, just take out your air horn and go, beep, beep. I'm sure that'll keep you safe. Well, I suppose it can hurt the ears of the individual who's trying to murder you. We got Elijah Schaefer who said, what would you rather have during a home invasion? MSM-sanctioned air horn or MSM-hated AR-15? Well, I got to tell you, if it was between the two, I would have to go with the AR-15. However, there are many weapons to choose from. I prefer, for me, in a building, I don't necessarily, look, AR-15 is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. Good, depending on the type of ammo you're using. I'd probably want to use something like an AR style 9mm pistol with, hollow point or frangible rounds. I'm not an expert on this stuff, but my view is, I just talked to a few guys and you're in a house, you've got narrow corridors. I don't know if you want to be holding a rifle with a longer barrel. Like pistol's probably better. AR style, so it's a bit bigger than say like a Glock or something. That's my opinion. if I had to make the choice. But okay. Now I'm just being nitpicky. If it came down to it, I'd probably say I don't want an air horn. Actually, I'm a big fan of the governor. And this is the one. It can take 45 ACP if you're using moon clips. It can also take 45 long, I believe, but also 410 shotgun shells. And oh boy, but with the shotgun shells, we've got these defensive slugs. So they've got it's like a slug and then I think like 4 buckshot behind it. But you can also put like turkey shot and stuff like that in it. So it really depends on what you're trying to do. And Dave Chappelle talks about this, that you got to talk to someone who's better when it comes to home defense. And you definitely don't want to be doing any of this in a place like Oakland, California. But what did Dave Chappelle say? Birdshot, buckshot, It's like birdshot, buckshot, buckshot, or whatever. Because that shows Dave's a reasonable guy. That's why I'm saying the governor. You're close quarters. You got something smaller. You've got it can hold 6 shells or rounds. And what you could possibly do is, the first rounds are effective warnings with turkey shot or some or game shot, like game load. They're not going to seriously harm or take someone's life, and probably scare them off. But I got to tell you, I talk about this sometimes, and people say you're wrong, Tim. You've got to use direct force immediately because you don't know what the intentions of these individuals are, and if you try and defend yourself, they could take your life. So I get that. So I always say, we take self-defense seriously. You make sure you're always abiding by the law. But, for those that are in California, perhaps you'll just have to use an air horn. Good luck living in one of the most dangerous cities in the country and having an air horn to defend yourselves. Democrats propose 1,000% tax on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And by high capacity, they mean low capacity. Isn't that funny? This is where we're at. Alleged thief in viral 7-Eleven beatdown stole 2 other times, and the workers are being probed for assault. So I tell you, my friends, hey, don't try that in a small town, says Jason Aldean. Look, I like the song. I get it. But let's be real. Bro, not only have they tried it in a small town, they got away with it in a small town. Michael Tracy has what I think is one of the most important bits of journalism that we've seen in a very long time. July 26, 2020, he says 2 months since the riots and still no national conversation. Abject evil. Unquestionable. Black Lives Matter, the George Floyd rioters and the leftists are abject evil. They are demonic individuals. They are evil. They seek to steal. And I have dude, look, the leaders of this, I believe, are evil people. They want power. These are the kind of people that in the fall of the Soviet Union became the oligarchs. They went around with guns, stealing, seizing property and taking over. They then have their NPC drones who march in lockstep behind them. This is always how evil regimes come to be. You've got Stalin. You've got name a dictatorship. Nazi Germany, that's the obvious one everyone always defaults to. But the question is, how did these people salute this guy? How were there so few in resistance in Germany? There were. You ever see that movie, Valkyrie, I think it was called? Tom Cruise plays this officer who tries to assassinate Hitler. Like, there were people who knew what was happening was crazy and wrong. And you have, unfortunately, the banality of evil marching behind those who are truly depraved. And this is what we saw. Now, these photos that Michael Tracy got, it's crazy. Here's your small town. Here's your small town with the boarded up windows with everywhere. Just mass rioting everywhere. Justice for Brianna. They're in on it. F12, people were spray painting and vandalizing. There's some saying, let me see if I can find this. Please don't hurt us. What does this one say? You must have a mask on. Black-owned business. They put that sign in the window because they're hoping you don't destroy their lives. They're begging you. They're begging you. Here's another one that says black-owned. They're saying, please don't hurt us. There's one where it actually says, please don't hurt us. We support Black Lives Matter. Please don't hurt us. Beg for more in your small town. Beg them. Get on your knees, you pathetic coward, and beg them. That's what we are seeing with this. The people who know, there's nothing you can do. Abject evil is in control. If you go out and there is a man who is chewing on meth What is it? A speedboat's fentanyl and meth? I could be wrong. He's behind the wheel of a car. You better let him drive that car, officer, lest you go to prison for the rest of your life. This Tao Tao guy, he got sentenced to like 4 years at the federal level for deprivation of rights. And now he's getting another 5 years. He's going away for like 9 or so. I think it might be, I might be getting the number wrong. I think it was like 7. Maybe it's 3 and it's so 7.5 to 8 years in prison. There you go, buddy. There you go, buddy. And what's the point? Why are they doing it? I mean, one argument is that they want these cops to quit so that they can get their cops in. We've seen in California, they're doing these like social worker things. The system is being gutted and ripped apart, but I got no sympathy for these cities. You know, my friends, people laugh and scoff at the idea of civil war. And there are a lot of people who just don't believe it could happen. Perhaps they're correct because it's a revolution. From the Concord Monitor, Vivek Ramaswamy proposes new American revolution during Concord Town Hall. And he said this more than once. He says, you can't have reform. He says, do you want incremental reform in this country or do you want revolution? I stand on the side of the American Revolution, those 1776 ideals. I believe the moment for incremental reform has long passed if it ever existed. I like this guy. I like Vivek Ramaswamy. And I saw that and I said, you know what? He's right. We need revolution. And I suppose it's the fourth turning, Strauss-out generational theory, that we cannot just sit by and think we can sit on what once was that doesn't exist anymore. The left has infiltrated institutions, they've destroyed it, and they are holding positions of power, and they are setting fire to our cities. Their criminals are being let go, and the innocent are being imprisoned. People on January 6th who had no idea what was going on, who were never given a warning as required for any trespassing charge. What you have in D.C. is an occupying force. And you know what? People would say it's a figurative thing. It is not. It is overt and abject evil, seeking to imprison their ideological opponents, and it's happening. Yet in these cities, it is the police officers who go to prison. In D.C., it is the bumbling dotards who walked into a building confused who are going to prison. Now, of course, there are people who are fighting and violent. Those people should be locked up. But I speak of those who showed up 2 hours later, 3 hours later, having no idea any of that happened, and all they see is people walking around. And they say it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking it. So these people are going to get locked up. And I don't see how this system can carry on. It can't. So here's what's going to happen. Either Donald Trump gets elected, maybe Vivek Ramaswamy, and we have hard and dramatic change in this country to restore classically liberal ideals, or the left takes over this country and you get communism. I don't see a path towards some happy middle ground where we just carry on. It seems impossible. And so there are people who say there's no civil war. Well, good luck. Enjoy your time in prison. Why don't you put the BLM sign on the front of your business? How about when the rioters and the mob comes to your business, you get on your knees and you lick their feet? Lick. Come on. You put the sign in the window already, because that's what you're going to have to do. The police won't be there to save you. It's going to be the culture police who come by and say, why aren't you tithing? You know, this already happened in, I believe it was Louisville. Black Lives Matter went business to business and said, you're going to give us 9% of all your revenue or else. And when they didn't, there was one, I think it was a Mexican restaurant. I think it was a Cuban restaurant. They smashed one of the pots in front of the business saying, this is what happens when you don't pay. Really interesting, isn't it? I say it's abject evil, and it's happening right before our very eyes. You can stay in these towns and try to defend them and bring this change about, and you may end up going to prison for the rest of your life. I don't know. I don't want to come down on anybody who's trying to stand firm in their cities and prevent this takeover. We've long been saying, Jack Posobiec and I and many others, get out of these cities to be safe. Do what you think is right. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I will see you all then.